one hand, you might have felt the frustration, the sameness, the whatever, just being sort of stuck at home or within the 5 kilometers. But I also feel there is a lot that we can say might be considered positive. That is what I've experienced. I've actually enjoyed some of the solitude that it brought me. And I have actually had a lot more time. And of course, you try to utilize the time a little bit productive. And that also means a little bit more time to reflect, to contemplate, to go within. And we know that as a spiritualist, that is really a good way to actually learn to know about yourself. And if I sort of mention this in general, I think I can say that in these times, you might also have experienced that you resorted a lot more to prayer, to meditation, to going within. And that is actually my topic for this afternoon. That is there really value? Is there really something positive to be gained, from prayer, from meditation? And of course, you might also say, yes, it's been sort of always part of my upbringing, part of my culture, part of my religion. Prayer has always been a big part of that. And of course, we have all evolved, developed, expanded our awareness and consciousness over the years. But if I look back, I think your own upbringing, what you were actually being, and in my case almost indoctrinated with, stays with you too. And in times of need, people seem to be going back and just to go back to the familiar, to what they were known to do and what might have helped them. Because we are reaching out in times of need, we are reaching out to something that is higher, that is more developed than ourselves. And whether you call that your God, your creator, whether you really call on your spirit guides, your helpers, deities, archangels, everyone has their own means of actually reaching out and asking for help and asking really for support and strength during times of suffering, of need, asking for healing, asking for understanding. And if I go back to my childhood, you can hear from my accent, I was born in Holland, and that was in a family where really the traditional religion was still practiced. This was more the Protestant religion, and we were brought up in quite a strict environment insofar there was always a prayer before a meal, after a meal, at night time, and that was often a silent prayer. But we were expected to stay silent until the prayer was finished. So my dad was the head of the family, and he usually introduced it like, let's pray. There were not really a lot of words to be said, but it was actually expected that all the children around the table were sitting quietly, so there was no mucking around, no trying to really under the table to give a little nudge to your brothers or sisters. And I personally, as a child, found it sometimes a little bit tedious because the prayer could last quite a long time. Because the length of the prayer was actually considered like an indication that we were adhering to the religious practices that were expected of us. And that was the same actually also at night time. We were expected to say our prayers before going to sleep. And sometimes when you forgot, you thought, oh, quick, out of bed, quickly, because I have to say my prayer. It might be that it was a little bit out of custom, but also out of fear. Because you thought if I don't pray, something bad might happen overnight. So you quickly made sure that you said your prayers. And also going to church. That was expected on Sunday. We didn't have a car, so all the 10 children and their mum on their bikes, rail, rain or shine, we had to go to church, and sometimes even slippery roads, if I can remember. But it was about 20 minutes on our bikes, but we were expected to attend church. And there again, it was that traditional religious kind of service where also the minister, he might have been judged as far as how good the minister was by the length of the prayers, by the length of the service. And it was really sometimes quite amusing if I look back, because it was a rural area and the church was in the village. Quite often, as soon as the minister started with the prayer and with the sermon, and it was a little bit long, the farmers might fall asleep because they had been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, attending to sort of the cows, milking the cows. So to me, there was a lot of listening and a lot of being quiet. There was not so much sort of nowadays, even now with our spiritual practices, that we are always also expected that we participate in some kind of way. So I can really see that the changes have occurred over the years. A lot was let's say, in a traditional way, that I feel, if you look back, that we've come so far because we feel in general that the traditional religions are not giving us really all the answers that we are looking for. And this is a time of evolvement, a time of rapid change. And it might be that our prayers have also slightly changed. I still recognize the power of prayer, but it might be in a different way. And if we look back, those practices were really almost instilled in us as a way of life. It was not that we had so much choice in the matter. Now we have free choice. And I also like to say that it has given me also a lot of comfort. And I think we can't really do away with our upbringing. It is part of us, but we have added elements to it. And if I look at what I've read, because that is also where I gain a lot of knowledge, and lately I've been exchanging books with friends, seeing that the library was not always available, and I came across a book that is by Carolyn Myss, and I really love her philosophy. And she really spoke to my heart, because if you can consider, and you might also have been in that traditional kind of fold in the religion, and usually I felt that it didn't speak to my heart so much. Then I went back also to Holland. I might just mention that. Of course, the family expected me to go back into that fold. And I said, of course, I go with the family to the church. Not a lot had changed. But of course, they are also evolving in their way. But what I really loved were, for instance, the choirs. You could almost feel that it was really coming from the heart. And I can still remember one choir, it was a male choir. And if you see or if you hear those voices about, 100-member choir in a church, in a real cathedral, that is really speaking to you, and your soul is being affected by it. And that's the same with the organ play. If you have experienced a true organ recital in one of the, let's say, old cathedrals, it is really beautiful. It is almost like it comes from the heavens, and it speaks to my heart. And that is what is also where you could see the difference between what Carolyn Myss mentions, the automatic prayer and the authentic prayer. The automatic prayer is almost like reciting a prayer, the prayers that we are familiar with. And it might also be sort of the rosary, and it might be also something like where you are used to, where you are using some repetitiveness in the prayer. That is what Carolyn Myss calls an automatic prayer. It might be that you are doing it, but that your heart might not be fully in it. It is almost like a customary prayer. But if you have a prayer that is truly authentic, that comes from the heart. That is where you truly believe in. And with a repetitive prayer, let's say an automatic prayer, you might even wonder. But with an authentic prayer, it comes from deep from your heart. And you are paying attention. You are present. And you really believe in it. And that is what the spiritual way of praying is. You really come from a sense of grace. You invoke a real sense, a bubble of grace. And you hope that you link your conscious reasoning mind, there's nothing wrong with the reasoning mind, but you link that to something that is within you that gives you the sense of the sacred, and that is your soul, and you link that with God or with your Creator. And that is where Carolyn Myss actually also has levels of prayer, which I find really interesting too. She said the first level is that repetitive prayer, that we really almost use, part also to still our minds, but our own level of input is not there. And also it might not be, it invokes stillness, and it invokes that being sort of in a zone, but it is not really what she calls as a prayer of contemplation. A prayer of contemplation is at a deeper level, and that is a level of where you reflect on those big questions in life. Why am I here? What is really the purpose? You ask perhaps for understanding. It is almost more into a meditative. You open yourself up. And you open yourself up for higher insights. You open yourself up because you like to link in with something that you feel is there, and you like to reach that. And Carolyn Myss says, your reasoning voice sometimes drowns out the whisper of your soul. And that is very profound to me, that the reasoning mind is more from the ego. The reasoning mind doesn't really link you to a deeper sense of being. And that is where you have that prayer of contemplation. And it takes a matter of more trust. And it takes a matter of more opening up. Really opening yourself up to what is that higher sense, that higher energy, what you might even name by the words Christ consciousness, that deeper awakening. But Carolyn Myss even has the next level, because she was very much, let's say, a mystic. And she also has the third level, what she calls a prayer of union. And that is the true merging with all that is, the Christ consciousness. And she actually says there is not really a language, there are not really words that you can describe. You can't really describe what you actually experience. It is a sense of being in that bubble of grace, where you experience the oneness of all that is, where you really experience that link with spirit, and where there's boundaries between you and you and you, and where the boundaries between these are our angels, these are our guides, these are our, and God, it almost disappears. But we experience that true oneness, that mystical experience. That is something we need to strive for, and to really become that enlightened. And I have to say, I'm not there yet. And you probably are not there yet. We still have a long way to go. But that is where prayer and meditation is so important. These are our tools that are being given us to perhaps reach that level. And someone mentioned it once to me, and it always stayed with me. And they said, prayer is you talking to God. And it usually is a prayer of what you expect of God. Please, God, help me. Please, God, do this for me. Please, God, may I have. We even bargain with God. Please, God, if you do this for me, I'll do this. Yeah? In that kind of sense of meditation and opening up, meditation is God speaking to us. And we are in that listening mode. We have to really listen and be still. Otherwise, we drown out that voice. And this really reminds me, if I can just veer off a little bit, children are so open for it. I have a little granddaughter, who's almost 3, going on 21. And she's really in that stage of missing independence. She is really, I can do this. She is really having sort of found out the power of saying no. But her personality is also developing. So she lives sort of near the city in Thornbury. I live in Croydon, and she knows that's quite a distance. So when her mum, Maria, explained something to the children, because they have 2 little children. She said, Lila, are you having your listening ears on? Because Lila was everywhere except paying attention. She was distracted. And Lila, of course, said, no, I can't, very dramatically. I left my listening ears in Croydon. So the mum actually thought, oh, well, I'll ask Oma, that's me, to bring back your listening ears. But I thought that was so I can relate to that in this way and ask you, do you also have always your listening ears on when God speaks to us? That is almost at a different level. But we try to sometimes tune out. And I still have to remember that meditation is listening to God. That is how we might experience. And that is actually opening up to all that is. It opens us up to insights. It goes deeper. We tune in with our hearts, and we tune in with our inner hearing, and with inner sight we tune in with our 3rd eye, and we are still. And that is the stage we need to come through to, that we really feel that we are in that bubble, and that we are open for all those new insights that are there for us. Sometimes we are not always willing, and we might kind of block ourselves. Because in our Lord's Prayer, there's also the saying, God's will be done. But are we really ready for God's will to be done? Or do we say, God, yes, I'm willing to do what you like me to do, but. We have one step still in our world. And I can relate to that when Carol asked me, Rit, would you also do a talk? What did Rit say? Yes, but I am not really ready to this new kind of way. I'd like sort of to have the energy of, people there. But what happens if you really go in meditation? What does that little voice within you say? Rit, you are really copping out. You can do this just as well as anyone else. And I'd said to Carol and to Lorraine, put me just on sort of the backup if no one else is there. But that's not good enough. So I said to Lorraine the other day, Lorraine, I'm willing also to do it. Okay, I'm ready. So that's why I'm here. And I really hope that you have gotten something out of this. And if I may, Carol, I'll just have finish off, because I know I sometimes go over, with a prayer that Carolyn Myss in her book sort of gave us. And if everyone who is listening, if you really try to resonate it within you, see how it speaks to you and see how it makes sense to you. And Caroline, one of her prayers, it says, I embrace the power of prayer. I open myself to divine guidance. I surrender myself to become as a channel for grace, healing, and service as God directs my life. Thank you.